Welcome into the Awesemo MMA strategy shows to get you ready for Saturday's UFC Vegas number 43, headlined by a female bantamweight matchup between Qileng Vieira and Miesha Tate. We are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Later on in the show, we'll talk about some Monkey Knife Fight plays when it comes to the main event and co-main event. I will tell you, as I was going down those props over there at Monkey Knife Fight, definitely saw some lines that did stick out to me. Of course, as always, I am joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. Happy Thursday afternoon to you, Pete. Obviously, looking at this fight card here this week, obviously last week we're coming off a great match between Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez. But I know, as you know, kind of my thoughts is, and FanDuel has not posted salaries yet, so we're not going to talk about FanDuel here today. I'll be talking about DraftKings. There was some odd salaries, I would say, in comparison to what the betting odds are.
Yeah, I think that whoever's creating salaries was sipping on something. I don't know. It's just a little weird. They don't really relate to some of the betting odds that you will definitely bring up. It's just a weird card in general, right? Like sometimes you get a good feeling about a card. We've been spoiled back-to-back amazing fight cards, and now we're kind of just tossed a mediocre card at best. And I don't know. We'll have to pick some spots and find some leverage on the field. But as always, it's a fight week, and I am excited to break it down regardless.
Look, I'm just saying this. I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but there's multiple fighters under $8,000. I'm like, yeah, I can roster them this week.
Yeah, same. I mean, we'll get into it in detail, but I would agree with you.
Let's get right into it. Main event, Miesha Tate taking on Qileng Vieira. Miesha Tate, 8,300 over on DraftKings, 7,900 for Qileng Vieira. As you look across the betting lines, of course, you can check that out over at Odd Shopper. It comes to Miesha Tate. There is some books out there that actually do have her at plus money, plus 100. Everywhere else, you're pretty much somewhere between minus 105, minus 110 on her. So being pretty much is, she's a slight quote unquote underdog in this one, kind of a pick 'em type fight. And, when I was looking at this matchup, Pete, the one thing that really stuck out to me about Qileng Vieira, because when I'm thinking about Miesha Tate's path to victory, I'm thinking about her being able to use her wrestling in this matchup. And when you look at Qileng Vieira's past couple opponents, she hasn't had to worry about that fighter going to have potentially the takedown game that Miesha Tate will have in this one.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'm interested in this matchup, and I think the salaries of both fighters makes a ton of sense to fit in your lineups. It's going to be pretty difficult to avoid this fight. I'm interested to see how Miesha Tate looks again. Obviously, it was a small sample size, and she looked great in her return. I just don't know if that's going to be the constant moving forward. It could have been just one amazing performance. We will have to see. We will have to, obviously temper expectations, but I actually do like Miesha Tate in this matchup, and I do like her a little bit more than Qileng Vieira, although I think Qileng Vieira will garner a little bit more ownership just given the salary reduction. It's a close fight, but for Qileng Vieira, I think that she relies on getting top position a lot and blanketing her opponents, which I think a fighter in Miesha Tate can somewhat nullify, get on top, reverse position, incorporate takedowns of her own. Definitely has the higher finishing potential of the two, in my opinion. I think that her boxing looked ever improved. I think that her ground and pound is vicious when she incorporates it. She has some sneaky jiu-jitsu, but I think if this ends up on the mat, you would look to Miesha Tate to incorporate more ground and pound in an attempt to get her out of there. So yeah, I like Miesha Tate in this matchup slightly more than the field, I would say, but it's going to be a nice value for your lineups either way.
Aiden brings up a great point in the chat. It's a point I wanted to bring up. This is a 5-round fight, and and obviously, I do think that because of salary, I think this is a fight we have to look at getting to. I'm not saying I'm trying to go 100% on this fight, but this is a fight that I'm targeting. I want to get to because of salary and 5 rounds. But a concern I do have about Qileng Vieira is, what does that gas tank look like in the 4th and 5th round? Because we've seen her get into the 3rd round, and you can see how much she's slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Qileng Vieira will look good, honestly. I don't. I think that she has a tiny path to getting this done. And I do think that Miesha Tate, obviously, championship level experience, looks extremely motivated. You can make an argument that she looked career best in her past performance. And Miesha Tate's going to be a smash spot for me this week, although I will somewhat temper expectations. It'll just have to depend on the size of the slate, or whether or not you're in a single entry or a large field tournament. but I like Miesha Tate at 8,300.
Yeah, I like Miesha Tate in this spot as well, but I don't mind getting the Caitlin Vieira.
Yep.
And of course, if you want to see what those ownership projections we have, all you got to do is sign for that Awesemo Plus membership. I will tell you, Alex updated ownership just a little while ago. Of course, we're just waiting for those FanDuel salaries to come in. Once those come in, Alex will get that updated up there on the site. So you got to check out that. Of course, if you want to check out some of the free premium data and tools over at Awesemo.com, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, today's free premium data and tools are Thursday night football projections, NBA ownership rankings, and NHL ownership projections. Of course, every day over at Awesemo.com, you can check out Adam's NBA deeper dive article, which is free to read. So be sure to check out that. Of course, if you're joining us here on YouTube, we'd appreciate a thumbs up, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. And if you're listening to us on the podcast feed, hey, subscribe to us. Give us rating and review. We always love seeing those rating and review. Help us out and let everyone know about what we do here at the Also MMA Strategy Show. Next up, Pete, we got a matchup against Michael Chiesa and Sean Brady. Sean Brady, 8,900, 7,300 for Michael Chiesa. Sean Brady, a minus 170 betting favorite in this one. I mean, look, I remember I had the opportunity to call one of Sean Brady's fights on the regional scene when he fought for Shogun Fights, taking on Colton Smith. And I'll tell you the one thing that I remember leading into that fight, there was a lot of people that thought, hey, this was kind of that signature fight. And, a little after that, I kind of heard like maybe the UFC wasn't quite interested in Sean Brady because of kind of the fighting style he has. But man, this has been a tremendous signing. First off, kudos to Michael Chiesa for taking this fight. Yeah. There might be some people in his position that says, why am I going to take on that young up and comer? Here's I look at it, and what concerns me about Michael Chiesa is we've seen some poor fight IQ where he leaves his neck out there. Yes. And that is one of the big concerns I have about Michael Chiesa.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad that you brought it up. This is a massive, massive step up in competition for Sean Brady. You go from the regional scene to debuting in the UFC, fighting some low-level opposition. Coming off a solid win against Jake Matthews makes a ton of sense. He looked amazing in that performance. Now stepping up, fighting Michael Chiesa, who has been a veteran in the UFC, has been an animal in regards to wrestling, out wrestling his opponents. And in specific matchups, Michael Chiesa can cause nightmares for his opponents. If you want to look back against a fighter in Rafael dos Anjos who has solid jiu-jitsu, he landed 6 takedowns. But Rafael dos Anjos, I think, isn't really a submission threat like you would imagine. A Sean Brady is a submission threat, where if Michael Chiesa gets a little lackadaisical in some of the transition periods throughout the fight, I do worry because Chiesa has a susceptibility of leaving that neck out there, getting caught in chokes. And when he gets caught in chokes, you saw it against Vicente Luque, you saw it against Sergio Pettis, Kevin Lee. So anybody that can threaten the neck is always live to beating Michael Chiesa despite his overwhelming, grappling and wrestling. If he gets behind you and gets your back, he can definitely win rounds, solidify rounds. It's just a matter of pace, pressure, and limiting mistakes. And I don't like him here in this matchup, to be honest, because Sean Brady is fantastic at capturing the neck. We have seen that. He's actually fallen into some submission finishes and primarily was not known as a finisher on the regional scene over Christian Aguilera and Matthews, back-to-back submission wins. I could see a scenario here where Michael Chiesa gets a little lazy and Brady ends up capitalizing on that mistake. But if you want to talk about value, pound for pound value, Michael Chiesa is one of the best on the slate given his upside. You talk about massive takedown totals. He's a decent striker, and his overall, I will say, resume could possibly help him in this situation where his his strength of schedule can definitely lead to correcting some mistakes en route to a decision victory. But I actually really like Sean Brady here. It's just a matter of, does he end up finding that neck of Michael Chiesa? But 8,900, absolutely warranted in my opinion.
Let me ask you if you're going to be surprised by the stats I'm about to give you. And this comes from courtesy at Numbers MMA on Twitter. Great Twitter follow account. Highest takedown accuracy in UFC welterweight division, minimum 20 attempts. If I told you Michael Chiesa is number one at 76.9%, you would say?
I'd probably say that, yeah, he probably leads the charts.
He is number 1, GSP number 2 at 73.7.
Yeah.
Number 3, Robbie Lawler.
Interesting.
That's the one that kind of sticks out to you. Highest control rate, UFC welterweight division history. Michael Chiesa is the only fighter in the top 5 that's still an active UFC fighter.
Yeah, it makes sense. And
he is number 1 at 66%. 2, Charlie Brenneman. 3, Dennis Hallman. 4, Matt Hughes. 5, John Fitch.
Interesting. It's a nice list right there. I like that. Yeah. Chiesa can definitely solidify position and possibly avoid mistakes. And he has some sneaky jiu-jitsu himself, good ground and pound, basically some of the best control we've seen in the octagon. But a fighter from Renzo Gracie Philly and Sean Brady is somebody I'm completely high on. I'm high on that entire team. And I know their coach, Daniel Gracie. I really, really like them a lot on this fight card. So I will still be siding with Sean Brady, but I absolutely love what you said there about Chiesa.
Yeah, Aiden mentioned about Felder saying that Brady has the best guillotine he's ever seen. Sean Brady and Paul Felder, longtime training partners there in Philadelphia there. Aiden, I don't know if I would agree with you saying that you need the winner of this fight. Look, if Chiesa goes out and wins, I no question because of the pricing. At 8,900, Sean Brady, if you tell me this thing goes 15 minutes, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if I would put this in that, hey, you got it, especially if Sean Brady ultimately ends up winning, because there's some 9,000 options out there that I think, potentially have a really high ceiling.
I might agree with Aiden, honestly. I like this matchup. I like the volatility of it because of Chiesa's mistakes inside the octagon. Brady's got powerful striking. He has good pressure, good submission attacks. Either way, you're either going to get Chiesa possibly riding out Brady for 15 minutes or Brady possibly capitalizing. This is kind of like, it's not at the top of my list, but it's approaching it.
Of course, this is the Also MMA Strategy Show. We are breaking down UFC Vegas number 43. We are going to be back in a couple of minutes while we get some things corrected here on the back end. So we'll be back here in a couple of minutes. We are back here on the Also MMA Strategy Shows. We are breaking down UFC Vegas number 43. We've already gone through the main event and co-main event. Before we continue on, do want to let you know about a promo we got going on over at Awesemo.com for the start of the college basketball season. Yes, college basketball is here, and we got our college basketball DFS projections that you can check out and get your first week for only $5 when you use the promo code Coach K, all caps, one word. That's Coach K for your first week of Also plus college basketball for only $5. This offer is valid through Saturday, November the 20th. Yeah, that's 2 days away. So if you want to get in on the action there, be sure to use that promo code Coach K to get our college basketball DFS package for only $5. Pete, let's move on to the next fight. We got Hani Yaya and Kung Ho Kang. This is a fight that was supposed to take place. I want to say it was back in July. Hani Yaya ended up coming down with COVID. I want to say it was on fight day that he tested positive for here. This is your 8,000, 8,200 matchup. Kang being the 8,200 side of this one. I don't know how much I really love this one in terms of DFS, Pete, because I just kind of feel like this is a matchup destined to go to decision. And for whatever reason, Kung Ho Kang is a guy that finds himself in split decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very difficult to get either one of these guys out of there. And Hani Yaya is a guy that can definitely win rounds based on unbelievable jiu-jitsu, solid takedowns for being a jiu-jitsu artist. But if you go back and you look at his losses, he doesn't lose via finish too much. I mean, losing to Joseph Benavidez back in the WEC, that's nothing to really hang your head at. But outside of that, he's losing close decisions as well, unanimous decisions, split decisions. The majority decision draw to Enrique Barzola is something that I think can pose some intrigue here for the lesser priced Hani Yaya in this matchup, because I do think that Kyung Ho Kang is talented. He's very good, but I had high hopes for Enrique Barzola, and Kyung Ho Kang is not the same type, but I can take something away from that matchup where Kyung Ho Kang usually likes to incorporate wrestling into his attacks as well, gets good top control. This is a fight that I would agree with you that is extremely weird. I will be siding with Kyung Ho Kang. I think that his takedown defense could actually stifle the game of Hani Yaya, where lots of sprawl and brawl, lots of avoiding bad positions by maintaining top control, trying to avoid any really grappling sequences against Hani Yaya, who doesn't have the best technical striking at all. We'll keep his hands low. We'll walk into shots. We'll desperately shoot takedown attempts. If this was on FanDuel and their old scoring system, I would probably be boosting up Kyung Ho Kang, because I think that he could actually defend some takedowns here. Plenty of them, to be honest. So 8,200 Kyung Ho Kang is my lean. Don't really like this fight. But obviously this salary range always poses problems for all of us. And I definitely think it makes its way into the optimal more likely than not. But this week, I'm just going to be kind of level with the field, or a little bit underweight to it, inside of, favoring Kyung Ho Kang in the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things of, you just don't want to put yourself in a jiu-jitsu type matchup with
Right.
Hani Yaya. I mean, this is a guy that obviously, that's where he's going to have success. I mean, look, you can go right up and down his record. You're going to see, majority of his wins are by submission. But for some reason, this fight feels like a 15-minute fight to me. I do prefer Kung Ho Kang in the fight, but I just don't know if in a 15-minute fight whether this is a fight I really need to prioritize.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's not high on my priority scale. But if I had to lean towards somebody with the better striking, I would say Kyung Ho Kang, and getting good top position, and he has good solid wrestling defense. You could definitely walk into some ground and pound situations that a couple shots can definitely turn the tide of a fight and possibly make your way into a stoppage. But I agree with you, a 15-minute decision more likely than not.
Next up, we've got a female 125-pound matchup. We've got Joanne Wood taking on Taila Santos. JoJo here, the massive underdog, $7,000 price tag over on DraftKings, $9,200 for Taila Santos. What is your take, Pete?
It's an interesting one. Obviously, it's a step up in competition for Taila Santos. She gets good takedowns. She has solid striking as well. She'll probably not have the speed advantage in this matchup. I think that Joanne Wood has the better, the faster hands, the faster striking, has some tricky kicks sometimes, some good clinch striking. I think that Joanne Wood could actually get taken down in this matchup, and that's where Taila Santos really shines. The top position, the control time, riding out a decision makes a ton of sense. I think that it's going to be business as usual for Taila Santos. Obviously, Joanne Wood does have some sneaky jiu-jitsu off of her back, but Taila Santos is well-schooled and well-versed for that. Obviously, we were worried about that against Roxanne Modafferi, Jillian Robertson, just avoiding dangerous positions. And I'm going to include Joanne Wood in some of my lineups, given her experience, and also her possibility of finding an armbar from guard. If she does that, she has done it in the past, she could have 90 plus fantasy points at a very, very cheap salary of 7,000. Obviously, women's MMA completely volatile, and week to week we see underdogs cash in spots like this. I do think that Taila Santos is priced up a little too much for my liking. I'll get to her plenty, but I would feel much more confident if she was like 8,700 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the price point does definitely scare me away from Taila Santos in this one. For JoJo, she's been up and down the past 2 years, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. I will say this: I'm interested to see if there's any interaction between JoJo and John Wood and Miesha Tate this week, because I don't know if you saw the Miesha Tate line about how dating your coaches are generally problematic. And of course, John Wood, the head coach of Joanne Wood.
That's kind of like, it's a blanket statement. It's completely different. Just because she was dating Caraway, like, come on now. Like, I don't know. It's different for everybody. And I think that Joanne Wood and John Wood could possibly have something. I don't know. It depends on the situation. That's just a Miesha Tate line.
In the MMA gym business, there's a lot of relationships going on inside the gym.
Of course. And fellow fighters. I mean, what are you going to Thiago Santos and Yana Kunitskaya? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of them. It's just natural. I mean, you find somebody who enjoys fighting and combat martial arts. It's crazy. It's tough to get away from.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to a fighter that trains out of Missouri, and she had said, State's fighter, and she's like, we get home, we don't even really talk about it. We kind of just, everything gets left at the gym.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, who knows? I don't even know how to respond to that.
We'll move on to the next matchup here. We got Davy Grant taking on Adrian Yanez. Yanez 9,100, 7,100 for Davy Grant. Davy Grant, I mean, this is like a familiar role for him, coming in as a sizable underdog in this one. Adrian Yanez, I mean, look, the boxing is very crisp with him. I was thinking about this earlier this morning. As I was driving to a meeting, and I was thinking about the last conversation I had with Adrian Yanez, and it was right after his fight against Randy Costa. And, the whole talking point with him wasn't about getting the second round finish. It was how bad the first round started for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. And, that's always going to be in my memory of how Randy Costa, who I know Randy's coach. Randy's coach is my coach. He likes to set up tricky kicks. His boxing is secondary. His kicks are primary. So for him to go out there and completely outbox Adrian Yanez in round one really threw me for a loop. I know that he was long in the matchup, but given everything that I know about Randy Costa, it was very, very interesting to me. And I'm like, do I have Yanez too high on my prospect list, or was it just a matchup, and styles make fights, and Randy Costa's length could pose some problems for Yanez, and that's what happened. But Yanez ultimately ended up coming back from that, looking much, much sharper round two. In this matchup against Davy Grant, I can't help but think that Yanez is the A side of this fight, but I also don't want to discredit what Davy Grant has been doing lately. And I have done that in the past, where I overlook Davy Grant. Yes, he has massive power. Yes, he'll get outstruck at times, but he starts winging shots, and one of these wide hooks ends up landing and plants his opponent on their backside. And we've seen it time and time again where Davy Grant can definitely, change the tide of the fight with one shot. Saw it against a Martin Day, Jonathan Martinez, against Marlon Vera. He had some solid success, but ended up scoring 44 fantasy points in a loss. I do think that Yanez is the more crisp boxer here. And I do think that the straight shots of Yanez can pick apart the wide shots of Davy Grant. But with all that being said, Davy Grant is a part of my underdog pool, because he just does the unthinkable, lands one shot, and Yanez getting outboxed by Randy Costa doesn't really scare me away from Davy Grant. It almost makes me want to get to a little bit more Davy Grant. So I'm favoring Yanez in the matchup, but like I said, Davy Grant's an excellent value play this week.
And if Yanez does stop Davy Grant via TKO or KO, he'll become the first fighter to defeat Davy Grant via knockout.
Yeah. And just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it's not possible. People like to only believe in things that they have seen. And that's kind of where you could have some leverage on the field by, all right, we're going to predict that Yanez is going to get a knockout finish, a first round or something like that. And everybody else is going to look at what has historically happened and be a little, hesitant on that. But, just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't.
Yeah, I mean, I like Adrian Yanez in the matchup. I really love his boxing. I mean, look, if I'm Davy Grant, I'm not trying to get into a boxing matchup
He's
here.
gonna, though. Come on.
I know he's going to, but I mean, to me, it's got to be about, you got to be a low-round mixed martial arts against Adrian Yanez. Try to get him off his game, but I do like Adrian Yanez in the matchup here. Next up, we got a matchup of this is one of the fights where I was a little surprised by the DraftKings odds on this one. And that's Pat Sabatini taking on Tucker Lutz. Tucker Lutz, 7,500, 8,700 for Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini, a minus 135 favorite in this one. Tucker Lutz, plus 115. I mean, look, I think Sabatini should be the favorite. I just, when I logged on the DraftKings this morning, Pete, I was not expecting to see the salary for this fight.
Okay, that's fair. I would agree with you that I do think that Tucker Lutz isn't a bad underdog at all. He showcased some really good striking in his previous performance, but also he has wrestling in his back pocket. He's been wrestling for the large majority of his life. The issue in this matchup, though, is that Pat Sabatini is a well-versed wrestler as well, coming from Renzo Gracie Philly, a team that I've already admitted I'm extremely high on. And Pat Sabatini has good striking. They'll probably be even on the feet. A little bit more power will reside in the Lutz corner. I would actually give a slight advantage to Sabatini in the wrestling department, but I'm absolutely giving Sabatini the edge in the jiu-jitsu department. His scrambling ability, his submission finishes, they're pretty incredible for the division. You saw that against Jamal Emmers. Yeah, he got dropped and he fished for a leg lock. Emmers was focused on a toe hold. Sabatini capitalized and said, okay, you're going to toe hold me. I'm going to heel hook you. And heel hook wins 99% of the time. Sabatini's jiu-jitsu is what could be the difference maker here. Debuting against Tristan Connolly is a tough debut, even though it doesn't seem like it is on paper. Connolly is a well-schooled, wrestler and grappler. Sabatini is a guy that is training with Sean Brady, training with everybody from Renzo Gracie Philly. And I do think that he will end up walking away victorious in this matchup. But Tucker Lutz has power to definitely expose a chin issue of Sabatini, where you did see Sabatini kind of got dropped against Jamal Emmers. I think that Emmers intended it to be, a body shot or possibly just an uppercut in general. And Sabatini walked right into it, was planted on his backside and had to scramble. But this is a fight that I feel is sneaky, and I'll be prioritizing this fight. I feel like you need the winner of this one. One way or another. The price tag of Sabatini is a little rich, but I'm going to get there.
Yeah, the price tag is kind of concerning to me. When you look at the over two and a half rounds, minus 175, I do think this is a fight that I would say I feel more likely that it's going to go 15 minutes as opposed to a stoppage. But I think if a stoppage comes, I don't think it's early, Pete. I think it's late. I think if it comes, I think it's like a third round type stoppage. I just don't see either one of these guys just getting off to a rolling start in the first round, and we see a stoppage, like say in the fourth minute of the first round. I really think that this stoppage, third rounds when it comes.
Yeah, I would agree. I view it as a very competitive fight. And it'll probably come down to cardio and who can push past the fatigue and who can deal with the adversity a little bit better. And I think it's going to be a dogfight in certain situations, but I still think Pat Sabatini will walk away victorious.
And of course, this is the Also MMA Strategy Show. We are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. They've got their player prop contest over there. When you use the promo code Awesemo, they'll give you an instant first match deposit up to $100. Once again, that's promo code Awesemo to get a first match bonus of up to $100. All you got to do is head over to monkeyknifefight.com to get started, of course. And one of the great tools that you can use is also a player prop tool that we have over awesemo.com that are absolutely amazing. You got to check out what we have over there at awesemo.com. Looking at the main event, co-main event here, Pete, in terms of total strikes, main event, Qileng Vieira, 128.5. Miesha Tate, 96.5. I think the Vieira number is really high just because I like Miesha Tate in the matchup. So that is a less situation on me. The Miesha Tate, 96.5. I might say less.
That's way too high on Qileng Vieira. Way too high. It all depends on how much damage Qileng Vieira can end up, withstanding in this matchup. I'll definitely say less for Qileng Vieira, and I'll probably say less for Miesha Tate. I feel like she could end up walking into a finish a lot sooner than landing those 90 some odd strikes.
In the co-main event, kind of another interesting line here. Sean Brady, 97.5. Michael Chiesa, 68.5. Kind of, at 97.5 for Sean Brady. I mean, that to me, you got to be thinking that's 30, 35, 33 strikes. He's got to land each round if you're thinking this fight's going to go 15 minutes. I do kind of tend to believe that this fight's going to go 15 minutes. I don't know if Brady hits that 97.5 number, so I'd probably go less. Kiesa 68.5, man. I think that number's pretty spot on for a 15-minute fight.
So it depends on whether or not, they stifle each other's, takedown attempts, and this ends up becoming a kickboxing match. If it becomes a kickboxing match, then you would imagine that they could approach the more, but honestly, it seems like another double less to me. I think there's going to be some grappling sequences here that they're both grapplers at heart. So it's going to be very difficult for them to avoid that. It's going to be some control time, some scrambles. I think the numbers are too high on that. I'll say less on both.
I will tell you, we're going to talk about this fighter a little later on. I think the number on Terrance McKinney is too high at 71.5.
That's a good one. That is a good one. I don't hate that.
Yeah, I just think that's just that number's just a little too high in terms of that match. So let's move on. Next matchup, we got Rafa Garcia taking on Natan Levy. Natan Levy, 8,500, 7,700 for Rafa Garcia. This is another one that the salaries here jumped out to me because Rafa Garcia is the favorite, a minus 125 betting favorite here. So if you like Rafa Garcia, I feel like DraftKings might be giving us a little bonus here.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I really like this matchup. For me, I feel like this matchup is going to be extremely important for optimal lineups. I feel like the winner of this is going to be in it. Natan Levy is definitely a prospect for sure. And, he looks incredible coming out of Syndicate MMA. He has some sneaky wrestling, but relies on some good chokes to defend some wrestlers. Also has some pretty good striking, big explosive hands, some tricky kicks, which can definitely pose some fighters problems. I think they could have given him a much easier debut, though, if you want me to be honest. I don't think this is a cupcake matchup at all. I think that Rafa Garcia is someone who, in my opinion, impressed me in his octagon debut against Nasrat Haqparast, and then looked good in subsequences against Chris Gritzmacher. Round one looked incredible. Chris Gritzmacher was en route to possibly, finding a finish, and then basically punched himself out in round one. And Chris Gritzmacher is just such a grinder, such a tough fighter to deal with. When he put Rafa Garcia on his back foot, you really saw a different fighter. And when Rafa Garcia was on his back foot getting pressured, the pressure of Gritzmacher definitely got to him. But you did see some dog in Rafa Garcia where he was able to dig deep and fight to the end and had moments. It was a close fight. He was able to land some takedowns. And what I've seen from Natan Levy, he's an amazing prospect. I like him a lot. He has been taken down and put on his back several times. I've also seen, that's in the regional scene. I also have seen him get taken down, get rocked. It's just interesting to me because this is a massive step up in competition. They could have done a little bit better matchmaking, in my opinion, in order to basically help mature this kid and not Natan Levy by slowly bringing him along. Rafa Garcia is definitely a tough fighter. I like Rafa Garcia as an underdog at 7,700, even though I love Natan Levy's skill set. I think that he has a higher ceiling and can definitely grow into the better fighter overall. And I think he checks more boxes. But this could be just a little bit too quick. Rafa Garcia coming off of two extremely competitive fights. Yeah, he's definitely got some value there at 7,700.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Natan Levy, it's a guy that I've interviewed a couple of times. When I think his name, I think it's submission. And you talk about it's a Ben Lugo fight in LFA, yes, where, he got, rocked. It was kind of amazing that he was able to survive. That's why it ultimately ended up being a majority decision win for him. But that was a fight that you put that one on film, I can see where people are going to go, oh man, I might have some concerns about Natan Levy. But to me, if I'm Rafa Garcia, it's about not making this a jiu-jitsu fight, make it a stand-up affair.
Rafa Garcia gets takedowns and he's good in the sequences. It's making the fight a little bit ugly if you keep it on the outside and you allow Natan Levy to keep it pretty, where he's able to, hit you with some sneaky kicks or possibly make you walk into a guillotine choke. That's where things could get tricky. But if you dirty box him, press him, basically not show any respect to him, put him on the back foot, I think that Rafa Garcia can easily walk away with this victory. So despite the promise of Natan Levy, I will be picking tons of Rafa Garcia for my lineups, but I view this fight as a necessity.
Yeah, that price point when I was putting together my spreadsheet just really stuck out to me. I was like, man, 7,700 for Hoffa Garcia. It's just, and I feel like, and there's several fighters on this card where I just feel like the way DraftKings has salaried this one. And that's going to be, it'll be very interesting to see how FanDuel does and how we can kind of compare that on Live Before Lock on Saturday. Next up, we got a female strawweight matchup. Loopy Goodinez having her third fight in 42 days as she takes on Loma. Lookboonmee 7,400. Goodinez 8,800. Man, for Goodinez, I mean, I understand about, man, you want to be an active fighter, and I do like the fact that this is at 115, not 125. We saw that in her last fight, which I think that ultimately at the end of the day, that was a mistake for her to take this matchup. Obviously, you look at Loopboonmee, Muay Thai striker. If you're Goodinez, you got to think about, taking this one to the ground. But like, my only concern about Goodinez, Pete, is, can we show an array of takedown attempts, not the same takedown attempt over and over again?
Yeah, variety is the key for Goodinez to be successful. And I don't know, it's a rich price tag, because I really think that Lookboonmee is an interesting prospect within the sport. I think that, coming from such a highly touted Muay Thai, career, you can definitely come over and have some success. And she's actually looked really good, and she's impressed me. I really love her clinch control. I love her takedowns from the clinch. Her sweeps really is what I mean by her takedowns. At 7,400, I view her as the better striker. I think that, Goodinez definitely offers some takedown upside, because you're fighting a traditional striker who could end up struggling, but Lookboonmee has the right people around her. Tiger Muay Thai has definitely helped her round out into I'm not a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but an ever-improving mixed martial artist. And, Goodinez trying to be a company woman makes a ton of sense. Obviously, this fight being at this weight definitely helps her promise for walking away victorious. But I have to say that Lookboonmee is probably the underdog I'll be most exposed to, even though I don't really like the matchup to end inside the distance. It's just a value piece, right? She's valuable at 7,400. Yeah. She could definitely steal a decision, and her striking one of these days will end up getting her a finish, because her Muay Thai is excellent. Her knees in the clinch are phenomenal. Her elbows, just everything in general. She could put on a striking clinic, and every time that you can locate a value piece with such, exceptional striking, they're going to find a finish one day or another. But this is women's MMA, tends to go the distance. I can see why people would be hesitant about this, but I'm favoring Lookboonmee in the matchup, and I think that she's the better value piece.
Next up, we have got Terrance McKinney taking on Faraz Ziam. McKinney 8,400, Ziam 7,800. Obviously we saw what Terrance McKinney did in his UFC debut. 7-second knockout win against Matt Frivola. I mean, look, the only concern, look, this is a close fight. I mean, there's a reason that essentially, it's a pick'em fight when you're looking at the betting odds here. Is if I'm in the Ziam corner, I got to have that question is, what does Terrance McKinney look like in the second and third round? He does have that wrestling background. So, it's not something where I think it's a huge concern, but it still is a question mark of in an MMA matchup. What does he look like in the second and third round?
Yeah, it's a valid point. I think that Faraz Ziam is very interesting as an underdog here. I think that Terrance McKinney is going to garner some ownership because he looked absolutely incredible and came through for me against Matt Frivola with a very quick finish. Obviously, he has some wrestling skills, and, being a solid wrestler basically his whole life, that's good. But he has been finished in the past, and I do think that he's fighting a fighter who has faced plenty of people that want to take him down. Faraz Ziam has some exceptional striking, and if you look at his UFC resume, debuting against Don Madge and then Jamie Malarkey and then Vendramini, he's had to defend takedowns at a high clip, but he's also been taken down, which I get it. There's definitely some potential with this matchup. And this is another fight that I view you need to have the winner of this one. Terrance McKinney, Faraz Ziam. I don't see how this isn't a part of the optimal lineup. McKinney has walked into some finish losses, and I think a guy in Ziam can definitely expose that, hurt him on the feet, possibly get him out of there, possibly finish him with a nice guillotine choke. He has a sneaky one. There's something I want to note about Faraz Ziam is that he is training at Sanford MMA, and anybody training at Sanford MMA, that room is filled with exceptional wrestlers and high caliber strikers. So I'll tell you, Ziam spending the past month and a half, 2 months down at Sanford can only help him going forward. And I think that he's more tested and obviously passes the eye test because it's such a small sample size for McKinney, right? Yeah, he looked good in such a short amount of time, but I do know that he has some technical deficiencies. I think the winner of this one gets 100 points easy. I will be slightly favoring the underdog in Ziam, which I'm not sure everybody's going to be on that train with me. I think a lot of people see that 126-point debut from Terrance McKinney. They want to get behind that again. I have no problem with it. I'm going to get to plenty of Terrance McKinney, but I like Ziam quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about Terrance McKinney and we talk about those 25 bonus points for a finish inside 60 seconds, he's a guy that you have to be looking out for. This is a guy who's gonna attack quick. I mean, that's his MO. When you look at his regional tape, this guy does not waste any time. So that's kind of a thought you got to think about it if you do want to put McKinney in your lineup. Next up, we got a flyweight matchup. You got Durden taking on Aori. Durden 8,600, 7,600 for Aori. Is this a must roster fight? Because I got a feeling this thing's over within 10 minutes.
It's a weird one to me because Cody Durden, I think, has some pretty solid wrestling to definitely expose certain matchups. And against a Qileng, I think is a matchup where he's going to need to wrestle because Qileng is definitely a very, very explosive guy who will throw caution to the wind and try to finish you. I do think that he has made plenty of mistakes throughout his career, and facing an American wrestler is something that I think is a kryptonite to a lot of fighters from China, from certain parts of the world. I do think a fighter in Cody Durden could end up having a career best performance in the UFC, priced at 8,600. I think that he has the takedown city approach where he's going to need to close that distance and test the wrestling of Qileng. Obviously, it's going to be tough sledding. I think Durden comes from a solid camp in ATT Atlanta. That room is actually pretty good. It's a beautiful gym. If you've never seen their gym, go on their Instagram. It's absolutely gorgeous. But Durden's got some high caliber training partners there. I favor Durden in the matchup, but I exactly agree with what you're saying that this feels like another GPP fight for me. But I'll be siding with Cody Durden. I think the American wrestler gets it done.
Yeah, ATT Atlanta is pretty much ATT Lima country.
Yeah, 100%.
It's about the best way to put it in terms of that one. Next up, Sean Soriano, one of the biggest favorites on this card. He's at 9,000, taking on Qileng at 7,200. I mean, look, this is, and you go back to that matchup against Giagos. Sean Soriano looked amazing in that first round. But the kryptonite for Soriano, whether we're talking about Sean Soriano of 2021 or going back years, has always been about getting taken down. As we saw, the Giagos fight got off to a great start, but ultimately gets submitted. That's always going to be a concern, but I do like Soriano in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Soriano, a guy from Providence. Oh, I know him. I train with a lot of his best friends. And I like Sean Soriano here. I like the move to Sanford MMA. He's been a staple of that gym for a long time, from the Black Zillions to the 20 other names that gym has had. But I think that Sean Soriano over the years is trying to patch some of these holes. And for the longest time, it was, Soriano's facing a wrestler. Not sure why he's accepting that matchup. The underdog has plenty of value. There's going to be a time where Soriano is able to stifle wrestlers and able to showcase his striking. Whenever he's able to do that, you do see the potential. His striking's excellent. And I believe that Henry Hooft will probably say that he's their best overall striker. I mean, he's like one of the assistant striking coaches there at Sanford MMA. His kryptonite, like you mentioned, has always been his wrestling, but it's not the wrestling so much because he's able to scramble back to his feet, get to his feet. It's the jiu-jitsu skills where he can get submitted. And I don't know if Nuerdanbleke is a guy that I want to rely on to get a submission finish over Sean Soriano. Yes, he's a very, very, very good wrestler himself, highly accredited wrestler, but I think you need more than just a good wrestler to beat Sean Soriano at this point. Christos Giagos, amazing wrestler, but has submission skills to back it up. So that's why that was a very, very weird fight. I'm going to say that Sean Soriano is going to go in here and get it done against Nuerdanbleke. And I think that he can end up finishing him, and he's priced like it. But if you want to look at Sean Soriano's box scores, or you want to pull up his career, if you just want to look at it black and white, it doesn't make much sense that he's a 9,000 fighter. When you look at it, he has 4 losses on DraftKings, basically constantly disappointing on DraftKings. So be aware of that. You're either we could be, we could have a situation where Sean Soriano is just favored, but on paper and via the stats, it's like, I don't know. I got no problem going to Nuerdanbleke as a long shot underdog, but I will be favoring Sean Soriano. I think he gets a knockout here.
Yeah, I mean, look, and it's like I said, we all know what the kryptonite Sean Soriano
Right.
is. That's always going to be the concern with him. Of course, one of the things that Pete and I love to see once the fights are over are those screenshots of those winning lineups. And you want to be rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. You can go over to awesemo.com/avatar. And when you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF. You'll win a free month of Awesemo plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations to Jordan Lockhart taking down 100K over there on DraftKings. As he notes, only had 3 entries. Kudos to you, bro. Nice job there taking that one down. Also, kudos there to Pickens taking one down there in the NBA. Billy also taking a 3rd place over there in an NBA contest over there on DraftKings. Sean taking the split there over in NFL, and also T.O. Deck taking it down with NFL. So kudos to all those winners over there. I love to see those screenshots there when it comes to Saturday's UFC. By the way, 3 o'clock start time on Saturday for UFC Vegas 43. Pete and I will be here 2 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday for Live Before Lock. So be sure to check us out on Saturday for Live Before Lock. One more matchup to talk about here, and that is Pinheiro taking on Hughes. Pinheiro 9,300, Hughes 6,900. And I'm just going to let the listening audience know. I already know what Pete's going to say, so I'm just going to sit back, Pete, and sell me.
Okay, all I'm gonna say is that 9,300 for Luana Pinheiro is just way too crazy. Why is she priced so high? Yeah, she got a ton of takedowns against Rana Marcos. Okay, Rana Marcos does not have the best defensive wrestling, but ultimately it wasn't even really a first round finish. It was a DQ win. So her score is absolutely ballooned, and I do think that she has some susceptibility to gassing out. Now, obviously, this box score is going to increase Luana Pinheiro's ownership, and I definitely think that she has some skills. She's a judo black belt, Brazilian jiu-jitsu brown belt, extremely skilled, aggressive combinations on the feet. But I feel like she fights like it's a round 1 fight, which can be good. So take that into consideration. Outside of round 1, I don't think that she's relatively tested. And a fighter in Sam Hughes, who has some, I'll say, a better strength of schedule on the regional scene, and a fighter that is a grinder. And grinders can always break styles. And a grinder in Sam Hughes, you look at her, she's 5-3. Okay, but let's go back to her amateur background as well. She has a draw against Lupita Goodinez. Obviously, that is 4 years ago, a loss to Lupita Goodinez. And we know what Lupita Goodinez has done recently. She looked really good in her professional career against Vanessa Demopoulos, where she's able to, she has like slow motion punches. And I think her punches are so slow that they throw fighters off. You know, and she's accurate though. And all I'm saying is that this price is just absolutely wrong. I don't think that Sam Hughes is the most skilled fighter, but I feel like 6,900 to 9,300, this isn't Amanda Nunes. This is Luana Pinheiro, small sample size. It's just too far off. I'm going to get to some long shot Sam Hughes just in hopes that she can weather the early storm, test that cardio of Pinheiro. Sam Hughes is actually really good in the grappling, well, in the wrestling world in some situations, because her cardio doesn't abandon her, and she takes advantage of, you know, her opponents kind of like failing to keep up with the pace. And you did see that Sam Hughes had some success against Loma Lookboonmee. She's also had extremely tough competition, debuting against Tecia Torres. Okay, I know Tecia Torres isn't known for getting finishes, but Tecia Torres, you throw her in a regional scene right now, which is basically what they did to Sam Hughes, she's going to get a finish. It's just going to happen. She's going to just outclass them. Fighting against Loma Lookboonmee and having some moments of success as that fight goes on definitely holds some weight for me. So all I'm saying is Sam Hughes needs to get a little bit more ownership than what I'm projecting that she will. I have no problem getting to her and sprinkling her.
Sam Hughes wins by decision prop plus 550.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's not too crazy given how bad her salary is, right? Like, you would imagine Sam Hughes win via decision to be like plus 750 to 800. of how DraftKings is projecting this. It's just it's a salary mistake in my opinion, and it's only off a couple $100, but every couple $100 makes people less enticed to roster her.
Yeah, I'm just saying, Pete, it's first fight of the night.
No,
just saying.
No. Are you going to avoid it this week, or are you going to play it?
I don't want to get to a 9,300 Pinheiro.
That's okay. You agree with me on that.
I don't know if I want to get to a 6,900 Sam Hughes either. I would rather get to someone like a Davy Grant as an upset play, a Michael Chiesa at 7,300 before I want to get to Sam Hughes.
Makes a ton of sense. I don't disagree with anything you just said there. This is women's MMA. They're, for the most part, they tend to go longer than a lot of men's MMA. And Luana, outside of round one, relatively untested. That's all I'm saying.
Let's get into our straight up 5 picks. Before we get into some questions, before we wrap it up here on this edition of the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show. I'll go my picks and I'll let Pete go second. I'll go Tate, Brady, Kong, Santos, Yanez. Give me Tucker Lutz as an upset. Hoffa Garcia, Goodinez, McKinney. I'll go Durden. Don't feel great about it. Soriano and then Pinheiro.
Okay, non-DFS related. I am going Tate, Brady, Qileng, Santos, Yanez, Sabatini, Garcia, Lookboonmee, Ziam, Durden, Soriano, and for the hell of it, Sam Hughes.
I mean, after you just talked her up, I feel like you have the taker.
I mean, like I said, it's not a confident play. It's just 6,900 is ridiculous.
Of course, coming up next will be the NHL Strategy Show. Of course, as always, appreciate everyone taking time out of the day to watch us here live on YouTube. You're not subscribed to also YouTube. Be sure to do that so you keep up with all of these shows that I have for you each and every day. Of course, be sure to check out whether it's NFL content, NBA content. We've got you covered right here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. I'm just going to get right to his over-under number. Got 12 fights. 7.5. Give me the under.
I think it's a good line.
Give me the under.
Yeah, I'm going to say under as well, but it's a good line.
I think the number's a little high.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay.
I think the number's a little high.
Okay.
Top 2 cash GPP underdogs. In terms of top 2 cash for me, I would probably be looking at Yanez and Soriano in terms of cash. I kind of feel pretty good about those two.
Very, very, very tough week for cash, in my opinion. I'd probably say Santos and Yanez, but I don't know, man. It looks volatile from head to toe.
Top 2 for GPPs. I'm looking at Miesha Tate and Terrance McKinney.
Okay, I retract what I say. I like Miesha Tate in cash too. That's a good point. I'll say Miesha Tate's awesome. I think Cody Durden might be the most interesting player in the midfield.
In terms of MVP champion type play, man, I don't think there's one that truly sticks out. I mean, I think you gotta be looking at the main event just because it is 5 rounds. Miesha Tate could collect a lot of takedowns, a lot of control time. So I think she really sticks out to me. And then kind of some other usual suspects to talk about there that we've kind of already talked about: Soriano, McKinney,
Brady,
Yanez, Brady. Yeah,
I would agree.
Favorite inside the distance: Yanez, McKinney, the Durden fight, and the Soriano fight. I think are the fights I'd like to go be finishes.
Okay, I agree with you. I think the Tate fight's interesting too. I don't know if Qileng Vieira can really last the whole time.
In terms of fades, I'll fade the first fight of the night. That's kind of a salary type situation, and I really don't think I will get a lot of Sabatini and Lutz just based on the price. I'll get more to Lutz, but I don't know if I want to get to an 8,700 past Sabatini.
Okay, that makes sense. Goodinez might be a fade to me, not a complete fade, of course, because it all depends on what type of tournament or whatever contest you're playing. I tend to play large field tournaments, so I have exposure to a lot of different places. But if we're talking single entry, I probably wouldn't put Goodinez in my single entry lineup.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of optimal plays, I mean, I think if you first start the main event, I think that's where it kind of starts.
Agreed.
I mean, then kind of some of the other fights that we've really talked about. Not trying to repeat myself here on those fights. I think it's pretty obvious on what those fights are. But of course, we'll be back here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, 2 p.m. each time to get you ready for UFC Vegas number 43. Of course, be sure to as you exit out the show, hit that like button. We really do appreciate that. And so we will talk to you on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Coming up next is the NHL Strategy Show. Have a good day, everybody.